coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson.
Unbelievable finish.
It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side by side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead.
Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Loma is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett Lowe. 4 wide at the stripe. For all his work here on this outside line, neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron, drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going the outside. Both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome to the Lone Star State. We're in Texas for round 7 of the NASCAR iRacing Series Friday night strength of field. We're running the reconfigured version of the Speedway for the first time in iRacing this week, with the service introducing it just a few weeks ago. The 2017 reconfiguration features 2 ends of the track that are wildly different and incredibly wide. Turns 1 and 2 will force drivers off the throttle and generate some passing opportunities. While over at turns 3 and 4, the drivers will be flat out. An opportunity perhaps to set yourself up with a good run on the car in front. What do I need to say? It's Texas Motor Speedway. It's fast, it's wild, and it's live right here on the iRacing Esports Network and presented by SimSpeed TV. As always, my name's Ryan Jones. Alongside me in the comms box for now is Jay Kennedy, who's also behind the scenes manning the cameras and everything that goes with that. And Jay, a new track, some new updates to the track as well, new lighting and caution lights. And turns 1 and 2, turns 3 and 4, they are wildly different, aren't they?
Yeah, hello everyone. The turns 1 and 2, they're so wide, and they almost draw you in to push a little bit too hard, which is going to make racing really interesting. And then the exit of turn 2 just opens up, and we may see 3, 4, even 5 wide at some points as the drivers try and push the limits. And then it narrows up into 3 and 4. It's a really interesting track. Been watching a few test races for the NASCAR Pro Invitational, and we saw 5 wide coming out of turn 2 a couple of times in that test race today. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, and looking forward to this race, and then the rest of the weekend as well is huge too.
Certainly is, and let's take a look at how qualifying is currently stacking up. Of course, they've got just 5 minutes to put down their 2 qualifying efforts ahead of 167 laps today. Currently, less than a tenth of a second are covering the top 5 drivers on the circuit. Watching Logan McAnally making his way down the back straight for his first attempt so far in his number 21 machine. He comes through 3 and 4 flat out on that white line. A track really pushes you up towards the Warren exit. Got to keep it off it and he comes across the line, and he puts down a time good enough for 17th. It's a 28.522, half a second off of Patrick Moose, who sits on pole at the moment.
It's very, very tight, as you said. Only, well, now it was 100th of a second separating first and second. Now it's 100th of a second separating first, second, and third, with 500ths of a second separating first through to fifth position, with McKissick going into fifth. A lot of drivers here that we've seen throughout the series so far. Garrett Maines about to start a flying lap now, has actually just started his flying lap. We'll see what he can do on this one right now.
Out of turn 2 onto the back straight away. He looks like he's got a pretty good run. It was a good line through 1 and 2, and if he gets it down onto the white line here, he should be good. He's missed it by just a little bit, but I think that's the right line, and that's what he's looking for. Keeps it very low off of turn 4. This is looking good for Garrett Maines. His second lap's going to be the fastest, though. So his first effort puts him back in 15th. He's got more speed, though, beginning the second lap as opposed to his first. As he makes his way out of 2, another good line for him. He got off the throttle early, powers out of the corner. And then again, through 3 and 4, no lift. 100% throttle all the way around the back half of the circuit for quite a few laps before your tyres start to wear. Again, keeps it glued to the bottom of the racetrack through the quad oval. Here on the start-finish stripe, he goes to pole, the 28.01. Puts himself half a tenth ahead of the pack behind him, 600ths of a second covering the top 6 drivers.
Unreal how close it is right now. It's so incredibly tight throughout this field. And I was about to say before that, we had the top 10 separated by a tenth of a second. Garrett Maines has ruined that at the moment, but even still, the top 15 drivers separated by under 0.2 of a second. Incredibly close. Josh Mickelmore, Joe Schaefer and Corey Wolf will be the last drivers to post lap times. Actually, no, they won't, because the checker flag is out. Session is done.
Session's done. Qualifying's wrapped up. Let's get them ready to grid up down on pit road. Let's take a look at how they line up then. Hit Texas Motor Speedway. Garrett Maines, the consistent man he is, puts it on pole once more. Patrick Moose will start alongside. Caden Honeycutt and Jonathan Dalrymple will line up off of row 2. Trevor Perry and Austin Yarborough starting 5th and 6th. Brendan McKissick and Stephen Massey off of row 4. Top 10 rounded out by JD Willis and Logan McAnally.
Over the page, we've got Justin Bethello and Ryan Doucette on row number 6. Row 7, Will Norton and Robert Miller, with Justin Levine and Tony Munger on row 8. Row 9, Brian Mercurio and Dylan Parker, with row 9, Spencer Burns and Joshua Campbell. Row 10. I confused myself a little bit there. Sorry, Ryan.
Row 11 will be Adam Jocelyn and Brad Wright. Presley Sora and Josh Berry starting 23rd and 24th. Joe Schaffer Jr. and Sean Disbrow behind them. Jerry Keat and Josh Mickelmore 27th and 28th. Corey Wolf, Nick Olsen rounding out the 30.
And the last page of drivers in our 36 car field, Dustin Johnson and Zach Hudson on row 16. Row 17, Michael Jeans and Eduardo Oliveira, with Tanner Love and Jake Hickston rounding out this full field of 36 drivers. Only one short of a capacity field, which means that we're going to have a fantastic race. 167 laps, just on 250 miles of racing, with fairly warm track conditions, 39 Celsius, 103 Fahrenheit, which means that the drivers by the end of this race will probably be struggling a little bit with tyres.
I think you're probably right. As with all the new tracks that get rescanned or added in terms of ovals in the last, about a year, Jay? This is how they line up to begin the race. A bit more realistic, having them sat on pit road to start as opposed to being dumped onto the main straight or tri-oval already to abreast. You do have to be careful not to run into someone next to you as you pull away, or for that matter, get a speed penalty for the guys at the back of the field. So adds a bit of realism. It's good fun to line up like this and make your way off of pit road. Adds to the spectacle, doesn't it, watching these cars pull away. And our personal favourite, Jay, with Texas, last night for us, 2 nights ago for us, and yesterday, I think, over in America, they added the lights to Texas Motor Speedway. With the lights that they added, they brought in the caution light system that this track has in real life, which is spectacular. The caution lighting illuminating the catch fencing, which looks real damn cool, even in the daytime. Will we see it today? You'd have to hedge your bets on yes. It is a long race out there, and it's going to be a tough race for these drivers. Although, with this series so far, we've seen plenty of green flag racing. It's been some of the best races we've ever seen here on Sim Speed in the oval department. Been a lot of fun to call. And it's only week 7, round 7 of a 36-week calendar, replicating what would have been the real-life Cup schedule for 2020. 36 cars, 167 laps, 244 miles in Texas. Who comes out on top? Let's find out. As we go green and Garrett Maines gets away well, and the field will come through past that start-finish stripe, the flagman waving the flag. We get ourselves underway as they all start to file down into one.
Noticing a couple of cars have opted to start from the pits, expecting a little bit of mayhem and calamity throughout this race, but for the most part, looks like we're fairly clean. A few real stragglers at the back of the field for that outlap too, but coming into 3 and 4, almost single file, which means that the drivers have worked out this track and are starting to just feel their feet a little bit.
Still side by side on the fringes of the top 10. This is JD Willis up on the top of the racetrack, trying to hold off Logan McAnally down to the bottom. Ryan Doucette just in behind him too. Oh no, a spinning car right in front of these guys, and around he goes. And that exit at turn number 2, and they wreck onto the back straight. That's a huge crash. It's a parking lot. Now on the back straight away, about half the field involved in this. And that is a massive incident.
This is not what we've seen throughout this championship so far, or throughout these races. It's incredible to see such carnage early on. It looks like only the top 19 or so have made it through. We've already got 3, 4, 5 cars already in the pits that have decided to tow back to the pits. We need a replay of this to try and work out and decipher what exactly happened to, I believe it was Austin Yarborough.
So Yarborough started to spin coming out of turn 2 on the cold tyres on the outside. He managed to just break the adhesion between the tyres and the racing surface. As he spun, it was the wrong point on the track. Whenever there's an incident out of turn 2 or out of turn 4, it's so hard to avoid it. You can see there, absolute chaos. And there was about half a dozen cars all stuck down there on the fence on the bottom of the track with nowhere to go as well. True Safeway car park stuff. That was insane. One of the biggest we've seen this year so far. We'll take a look to a replay from onboard someone further back in the field as we just have a look from another angle at that incident. Again, you can see it just bounced a few guys back up into the racing line, and the track was pretty much blocked. Some of the guys at the very back of the field did a very good job to miss it and just jump on the brakes. We ride on board with Spencer Burns. This is his view of the calamity. We ride on board as we come out of turn 4, into the quad oval they go, and then into 1 and 2. It's all looking nice and calm for him. They're not racing too hard back here. It's only lap number 3 of this race, and then suddenly smoke, cars spinning. Where do you go? Where does he go? Oh, nowhere that he can go. He got collected, and there's the parking lot down on the inside Armco barrier. What a shame.
Real disappointing way for lap 2 to start. We had 10 cars stay out from that caution there. Well, 10 cars that did not pit. Brian Doucette did come into the pits, but missed his pit box and continued on. Every other car in the field has had to come down pit road either to get some damage fixed or change some tyres, because, I mean, locking the brakes up that bad will be enough to overheat the tyres. Doucette will have to come back in because he has a very badly smoking engine.
Yeah, big shame to see Doucette with damage too. This is someone we've seen in most of, if not all of, our Friday night strength of fields this season so far. And he is going to have to get that damage repaired. That's probably going to be race-ending damage for him, if not severely race-hampering damage. Smoke coming from his car when we saw it. So he's got engine damage to that machine. And we are going to have to try again to get this race back underway and try to get some green flag running under our belts here. Expect another split here. There's those caution lights. How damn cool do they look? And at nighttime, they look about 10 times better. They are spectacular indeed. So, in terms of pit strategy, if we manage to go green from here, the interesting thing is it's going to be close between a 2-stop and a 1-stop. We've seen a few times already this year, Jay, where there's been a split between drivers did 1-stop and 2-stop strategy. Most notably was Atlanta, wasn't it, where we had that fantastic battle, cat and mouse battle between Matt Danson and Chris Shearburn to the end of the race, where the move was done with just 2 laps to go on the alternating strategies.
Yeah, well, that, and then we think back to Las Vegas as well, where we had differing fuel strategies and drivers who weren't sure if they were going to make it on fuel, and massive fuel saving strategy, and other drivers that pitted 5 laps later at the next caution flag to then make it home on fuel. So we've had bizarre strategies throughout, and like drivers running out of fuel and passes right at the end of win races. So it's been an incredible season so far. Disappointing start to this race, but a lot of drivers look like they've been able to get back out onto the circuit. Looks like we've lost maybe 6 cars from that incident. Miller, Bathello, McAnally. Oh my goodness! Yeah, my tongue's not working inside my mouth at the moment. Yarborough, Burns, and Mercurio all out. Will Norton did pit and he's made it back out on the circuit, but did go a lap down, as with Dustin Johnson, who is coming back in now to get some more damage fixed. Ryan Doucette has finally come in as well.
Of course, no fast repairs, no spare cars available to drivers at this level of official racing, which is why you've got to tone the aggression down in the early runnings of such long races such as this, 244 miles. The unfortunate thing is, Jay, it didn't seem like that crash really stemmed from aggressive running. It was just simply cold tyres don't work that well on the first 2 laps of a race on a 1.5-mile circuit, and it's so easy to lose the rear. You can actually lose a bit of rear downforce, and the rear end just comes around based off where other cars are around you too. So really unfortunate, but we've still got a lot of very good drivers out there still with clean cars. There's 28 drivers still on the lead lap, still about 32 drivers running around on the racetrack. Some of them have damage, but a lot of them are still clean. A lot of guys at the back managed to miss it. Of course, about 19 guys we know are squeaky clean. So let's try and get this one back underway. Once again in the hands of Garrett Maines. Honeycutt is outside instead of behind him. We go green once again. Honeycutt immediately will dive down to slot in behind him and cut off the route for Patrick Moose. And then Trevor Perry is going to get caught on the outside as Brendan McKissick will try to swoop through on the bottom. And I expect everyone to be very calm and mellow here. They don't want a repeat of that incident on lap 2. And look how spread out the field is already.
Yeah, no surprise to see the drivers have spread out a little bit more on this restart. As you see Joshua Campbell going up high through 3 and 4. Going to have to give up a bit of ground there. Zach Hudson also was battling very, very hard with Eduardo Oliveira. But much better restart as Honeycutt now trying to get the move done around the outside.
Trying to go the long way around on Garrett Maines in Texas. Can he do it? He's got the run, but he's not going to be able to do it through 3 and 4. Not while they're flat out. Maines will power back ahead of him. And now look out for Patrick Moose in the 17 to follow him through. As Moose will take second place away. Honeycutt's advantage turns into a disadvantage as Brendan McKissick closes up as well. Gets into the back of Moose. Honeycutt flies up the track. Gets into the fence all the way up on the outside of 1. He jumps on the brakes. The car spins. Caution's out again. Single car spin.
Lucky he didn't come back down there. I was a little bit nervous about starting to drift back down, but he held the brake very, very well.
Oh, someone else
he got in the throttle.
Michael Jeans.
Yeah.
Michael Jeans as well. Spun off of turn 2.
Maybe
Probably a reaction.
Yeah. No,
he got hit, actually, by the 15. I didn't quite catch the start of it. We'll take a look at the replay here, Sean. Jay.
Jeez, don't offend me like that. Yeah, I'm wondering if just the field checking up there. Yeah, actually just got on the brakes. He got a little bit loose. The 15 probably wasn't really reacting to it as much as he could have. Yeah, maybe not. You're exactly right. May not have even seen it at all. But that first incident, that was strange there for Honeycutt. Lucky that he's just had no contact other than a little bit of a hit in the side of the wall, because he could have been a lot worse. And there was very, very minor contract there between Moose and Honeycutt there. It was enough, obviously, to unsettle the car, but Not much more than that. So probably a little bit unlucky there, Honeycutt.
Yeah, I think you're probably right with that. I think there was a very unfortunate crash again. So, what we had starting there, Jay, was a very good battle for the lead starting to form up. You can see, with the fact that 1 and 2 forces you to lift off, it enables you to get massive runs on the car in front through the flat-out section of the racetrack because you start to lift off and there's a gap between their back bumper and your rear bump and your front bumper, which creates that massive suck-up effect to the car in front, which creates fantastic racing through turns 3 and 4 and leads to what you said about earlier. What was it, 4, 5 wide out of turn number
5
2?
wide. Yep.
In the test race. So, judging by what we've seen, this is going to be a really good race when we do get green. Of course, these incidents aren't going to last the entire race. We're going to get some green flag running in at some stage. As you can see there, a lot of drivers have come down onto pit road to get some fresh boots onto their cars and maybe for some get a bit of damage repaired. Michael Jeans, his car should be reasonably good. He should be up to pace. It was very light contact that he made with the fence.
In saying that, he's taken a long time in the pit, so maybe had a little bit of lingering damage from the previous incident as well. He's just getting fixed as well. There's a little bit of a ding in the front splitter there, you can see. So probably taking the time to get that fixed from the earlier portion. So this is a good opportunity for those drivers that didn't quite get all that damage fixed to be able to get a little bit more done and bring them back up to speed. So, and as you said too, we've had some incredibly long green flag runs. If you think back to Daytona, we had green flag stops in the first phase of the race. So we've had some really, really interesting and amazing battles and racing throughout this series so far. So this is very uncharacteristic for what we've seen in the previous 6 rounds.
It is. I think one of the reasons may be it's a new track. There's not as much running that these guys have done on this racing surface as opposed to some of the guys they've done, some of the other tracks, they've done a lot of running over quite a few years for some of these guys. Guys like Garrett Maines, to be the #1 I-rated driver in this race, of course it's an official race, so their numbers are based off their I-rating in the room. He's been on the iRacing service for years to build up, 6,000, 7,000 I-rating, whatever he's on. So he's got so much experience, but that's negated a little bit by a brand new racetrack.
Yeah, that's right. And so fresh to the service as well. Any advantage that he had, not just that it's a repave as such, which we've seen in previous tracks like Michigan and Daytona. This is a full rebuild because the track is so different. 3 and 4 still very similar, but 1 and 2 are just absolutely unique now. So yeah, it's such an interesting track. I haven't been able to do any laps myself yet, but every single race that I've watched so far has been so fascinating because of the different lines through 1 and 2 and the different corner shape through 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Yeah, the 1 and 2 is interesting because it's very wide. I believe I read it's 80 feet wide, something like that, which is ridiculous. And because it's also not as highly banked as 3 and 4, it's very difficult because if you do enter a little bit high, it's very hard, bordering on impossible, to actually get the car back down to the bottom of the racetrack. So you've got to enter a bit lower than you'd think and start to turn in a bit earlier than you'd normally expect on a racetrack like this. Because when you do get up high and you get out of that groove, you cannot get the car back down and you lose so much time up there as well.
You can see how wide it is there from that shot there. From the white line at the bottom, what's that, 7 cars wide? 8 cars wide? So
yeah,
you could probably really run 4 wide, maybe 5 wide through turns 1 and 2. So to have a corner that wide is incredible. To legitimately, I mean, we see 4 wide at Daytona, but there's not really much more room than 4 wide. You see 4 wide there, there'd still be space for a little bit of bumping
100%.
and moving around. So it's incredibly wide.
And of course, these are all official drivers, just regular sim racers that want to have fun. It does serve as a bit of a precursor, of course, the NASCAR Pro Invitational running on Sunday America time on Fox and Fox Sports 1. That'll be the same car, the same track as we're running right now. You want to know what the racing might be like there? Well, stay tuned to this because these guys are some of the best. as we look to go back green once more. Garrett Mains again with the jump. We get back underway, and a good start there for Nick Olsen, sort of down to the bottom side from the top, in between quite a few cars to get down there. And oh, that looks sketchy back there. They were almost 3 wide on the bottom of the racetrack. You could see it in the shot. They managed to sort themselves out and make their way through there without incident. Michael Jeans is one of the drivers buried in the field after his incident.
He's really struggling still, Jeans. It's really sideways out of 2, so guessing his setup isn't designed for cold tyres. It's probably part of his issue. But at the front, this is second through to 6, covered by nothing.
And very aggressive from Nick Olsen. Tried to sell a dummy to McKissick. Didn't work. He's lost a lot of momentum. And Jonathan Dalrymple going to try to drive it around the outside. He got a bit loose up on the top of the racetrack. Lost the rear. But he still had enough of a run to complete the maneuver. McKissick loved that in his mirror because it gave him some breathing room. But watch how they suck up now. As we're looking at Stephen Massey, look at how they suck up out of 4 and down towards turn 1 in the slipstream range. Dalrymple actually just getting out of it a little bit to avoid doing so. McKissick gets to the bumper of Mains, top 10 or so, all bumper to bumper here. Out of turn 2, you see how low they exit out of turn 2 is quite strange as well, as opposed to other tracks. It is quite a unique corner, but it's providing some great racing as we head back around towards the start-finish stripe. This train goes all the way back through the field at the moment.
Yeah, not much separating the top few at the moment. What, 3 seconds separating the top 20 is Honeycutt now. Looks to be the one trying to make moves. Of course, remember, he was at the front of the field not that long ago. And Olsen getting a little bit racy right now. I think he's not happy being tucked in behind Dalrymple here.
And Moose going to make it work on Perry, and that's going to allow Presley Sora to get down to the bottom side as well and take that spot away. He puts himself up into P6 then, just outside the top 5, almost into the back of Moose. Did Sora go there, but he managed to check it up in time, and Perry still defending now as JD Willis chased that rear bumper down to the bottom side of the track. Perry could not hold him off. They're running side by side now out of turn 4. Perry proving a very important point. Once you get stuck on the outside, you get freight trained hard at this racetrack. As Nick Olsen now going to demonstrate that exact same thing. He's going backwards on the bottom side, on the top side.
You don't want to get it stuck out wide, especially through 1 and 2 at this early stage of the race, because the tyre's not quite at 100% heat yet. They'll start to wear in probably in maybe another 2 laps or so. They'll start to be up to optimum temperature, and then from there we'll start to see some battling and moving. But of course the track still not quite rubbered in, still a little bit slick on the outside, so you want to try and keep it as low as you can for now. Wait for the heat to mean that you can move up the circuit a little bit more. But have a look at this, 3 wide at the front of the field. Moose, Wills, and Dalrymple going out at the front.
Dalrymple tried to look to the inside of McKissick. He got a push from Moose. Couldn't quite get the overlap, and now Moose is stuck on the outside. So Willis is going to go by him and take that spot away. He's coming up through the field very nicely at the moment. Started this one from 9th, finds himself running now in 4th place on the racetrack as Moose gets a bit loose out of 4, out of 2 even. And Mains doing a good job to fend these guys off. You can see, if you look at the chopper cam, you can see how much they suck up from basically this point now onwards through the circuit. Brendan McKissick behind him, trying to stay in the draft, closes up almost to his bumper, and then through turn 2, he's going to get a big run out of here and get right up to the back of it. Right there, can he get the run? If he gets a push from Willis here, and he will. So now he gets alongside him, side by side for the lead of the race. McKissick trying to take it away, and he does. Mains slots back to the bottom of the track, only loses 1 spot. That's the experience he has there. He knew he couldn't get stuck on the top side. Dalrymple's stuck there now. He's going to go backwards. McKissick already under pressure once again. A bit of contact between them.
That was a fairly heavy bump there between Mains and McKissick there too, so maybe there was a bump that we'd missed earlier through 1 and 2 that we didn't quite see as Mains just moves over and pushes Willis out of the way.
Yeah, Mains tried to block the move from Willis. He was already there, almost spun him down to the bottom of the track. Luckily, Garrett saw it and moved back up to avoid it. Now he has to slot back in again as Willis has made that move stick. And now Presley Sora wants to capitalize as well. I think Maines has not got as much pace as he normally does. He looks to be the cork in the bottle at the moment. And Sora wants to take him 3 wide down this back straight. He can't quite make it work as Willis trying to get by McKissick now.
Wondering if Maines either hasn't got the car set up for the long run, thinking that there was going to be a lot of cautions, or his car is set up for cold tyres as opposed to hot tyres, or the track temp is a little bit higher than he was expecting, or the track temp is cooler than he was expecting. He's not able to get the heat cycle through the tyres as much as he'd like. So if we stay green for a little while here, we'll find out a little bit more. But Dal Rimple, have a look at the run around the outside. I'm surprised we're seeing moves around the outside as quickly as we are.
Yeah, and it's rush hour traffic here in the minor placings for third on back. Maines trying to hold off an absolute truckload of cars, and Presley Sora was struggling for some stability through 1 and 2 last time by, as we were talking, and now he's got a bit more stability and gets to the inside of Maines, but Maines going to chase him down the track. This could be contact. No, he had him cleared by about a whisker. There was nothing in that as they go by a lapped car. That's Doucette up against the fence. Maines, he might not have the pace, but he's still got the aggression. He is desperate to hold on. And, well, they are just lighting up for an opportunity behind. You've got Sora, Dalrymple, Stephen Massey, Moose, Parker, Honeycutt, Wright, who won last time out at Miami. Trevor Perry's back there, Tanner Love, and Josh Mickamore as well. A lot of drivers wanting to vie for this third place spot.
Have a look at the gap the front two have got Neds on for the lead too, because Willis is through up the inside. So
here we go, yeah.
McKissick sort of thrown us off guard there, because we were thinking McKissick was going to be the one to run away with it there. But JD Wills into the lead of the race.
So, JD Wills puts his hat in the ring. JD Willis trying to make it 7 winners from 7 nights in this series. He goes to the front. We look back to third. Take a wild guess. They're still side by side. Garrett Maines and Presley Sora. Here we go. Here's the run for the 28 car on the top of the track. He got a big burst of momentum to the middle of the corner, and he's going to clear Maines down the back straight. The hard work pays off, and he's going to take that spot away. Can he go and chase down Brendan McKissick or J.D. Willis out front? Next car to try and get by Maines will be Massey, as Caden Honeycutt now starts to put a manoeuvre on Jonathan Dalrymple. You can see he's actually got a bit of damage to the front left of his machine. Doesn't seem to be hampering him too much, as they're 3 wide behind him. Dylan Parker in the middle had to back out of it because Moose made a move to his inside, and at the same time he tried to get to the bottom of Dalrymple. They almost came together.
Incredible how much these guys are battling in this early phase of the race. I mean, we're a quarter of the way through a fuel stint, maybe a third of the way through this fuel stint. We restarted on lap. We restarted 19 laps ago, so lap 12 essentially. And these guys are going at it really hard, really early in this phase. So surprised that we're seeing the aggression levels this high, as Garrett Maines coming back now and might take third position back away.
Well, that's an interesting thing to note. It looked like he had no pace. It could just be a matter of the slipstream. It's just so powerful at this racetrack that you can't get away. And Willis and McKissick have done a fantastic job to do so as they battle behind. So Maines comes back. He's back into third. Sora up top, trying to do it again, what he did a lap ago, or lap or so ago, but he can't, because that was a great little bump from Stephen Massey in the middle of the quarter to launch Maines clear, as now Honeycutt wants to get to the bottom. Sora thought about defending, couldn't quite do it, and the gap was just about there for Honeycutt to slide through.
How close was that? There was nothing between them there. Well done from Sora, seeing that Honeycutt was coming through, just opened the wheel a little bit, just enough to make sure that there wasn't contact, because there would have been contact if Honeycutt wasn't quite so aware there. Sorry, I mean Sora wasn't quite so aware, but Honeycutt and Maines back together again. It's like we're back to the start of the race.
Yeah, a little bit like that, isn't it, at the moment? So the lead for the two guys out front is out to 2.5 seconds. They've almost gapped these guys quite comfortably, as it's all on back here on the fringes of the top 10 as well. side by side. This is Tanner Love on the bottom, going to allow Josh Mickelmore to follow him through. Jonathan Dalrymple starting to lose some spots after starting this one all the way up in 4th place. He's back now to 13th on the racetrack. Might lose out to Zach Hudson and Dustin Johnson as well. Make that Brud right in just behind him is Presley Sora going to bump draft Stephen Massey all the way down into 1. Hey, by the way, up front, Brendan McKissick is back in the lead of the race. Yes, certainly. So Perry now coming under a lot of pressure. Dylan Parker, look at him behind, still side by side. Moose and Sora behind them. As, that's a little bit close. Moose moved up the track. Tanner Love thought about putting his nose up the inside. Thank the Lord he didn't, because that would have been a big crash. Much similar to turn 1 if he'd done that. As we watch these two go side by side again. This is Stephen Massey on the top of the track. Oh, and now look at this. The 34 takes them 3 wide into turn number 3. Dylan Parker trying to make it work. And Trevor Perry has to give him the room as they come out of 4. And Dylan Parker now on the charge. He started this race back in 18th. He's up now into 6th place. Yeah, he's not going to hold on because here comes Moose, and the inside we've seen prevailed 9 times out of 10 through 1 and 2. It's only worked for a couple guys. It's not going to work there for Trevor Perry. He got a bit sideways up top, similar to Yarborough on the first lap of the race, but not quite as sideways. Dustin Johnson now going to get by Massey just behind him. Massey's going to go backwards behind the 28 of Sora as well. The outside is either you get freight trains or you make a move. There's no in between. Almost slides up into the door of Trevor Perry there as Dustin Johnson. Sora snaps sideways behind them as well. You might have just seen that. Mickelmore will go round his outside and then tuck down in front of him on the entry to 3. That was a little bit close, but great awareness from him to make that stick. Mickelmore now running up inside the top 10. He started from 28th, one of the biggest movers of the race so far.
Yep, sole Oz NZ driver out there. We've seen a few, and of course we saw Matt Dancer do a good job, and Jason Martin previously as well. As Garrett Maines is having a few tech issues from third position.
Tanner Love holds onto it. That car took a hard left turn coming down the back straight away. Don't know whether he clipped the fence or whether he just got loose out of 2, but he did a good job to hold onto it. And we have a new commentator up here. Jay Kennedy is going to step aside and go behind the cameras and focus solely on that. And we're going to have a new face for SimSpeed, but a familiar voice, I'm sure, for many of you out there. Justin Prince, welcome to the booth. Or not. Something's going on there for Justin. I can tell you he's here, but his mic ain't working. Give us a moment there. As we see a move for Dustin Johnson, goes by Patrick Moose and takes that spot away. Let's try again. You there, Justin? No, he ain't. Moose is going backwards here. He had some great pace through the middle stage sort of this run, but getting towards the latter end of it now, he's starting to fall backwards and lose out. Josh Mickelmore's been looking after his tyres really well, it seems, because he's charging and he's just given Moose a big shot down into turn 1 that time by. And for the third time asking, third time's the charm, you got us, Justin.
Yes, indeed. Sorry about that. In terms of that, it's been some great action here, though so far at Texas Motor Speedway, man oh man. But a lot of the top contenders so far are the ones who have prioritized long run speed so far, it seems here, Ryan. With McKissick having that good advantage and many others from that Nexus group pulling off and away into the sunset.
You're exactly right, and we've seen you running in this very series, Justin, a couple times this year. And in terms of how the driver attacks the circuit, how do you want to go about a top split NIS race? Is it all about the long run?
Well, it kind of divides a little bit here and there. It comes down to two different philosophies. If you have the short run, you're good if it becomes a caution-precaution kind of race. But at the same time, you try and prioritize the short run, your car will likely build very tightly in the long run. In turn, Ryan, you're going to lose 3, 4, 5 tenths a lap. So you kind of have to find that right balance where you're not very loose in the short run to be able to, while at the same time still being able to launch then, but also have the speed for the long run to maintain, if not build, the gaps you've built upon the racetrack, such as many of the others tonight.
Yeah, and top split racing at this level, it's all about that. You've got to be very aware in terms of not only your own driving ability, but also pit strategy and car setup. It's all equally important because every little tenth of a second matters at this level. As we can see, speaking more than tenths of a second, McKissick now out to a 1.7 second advantage over JD Willis. He's really starting to find the pace in that car as we ride on board further afield. This is right in behind the 41. We're riding on board with trying to get by, but struggling, it seems, to make the move stick. Because the run, it was easy to get earlier on the fresh tyres, but as the tyres start to wear out, it becomes harder and harder to generate those runs.
Yeah, based on experience, many of these teams have been trying to find that balance, especially the problem being turns 1 and 2, right? Because there's the different type of banking by about 4 degrees. It's not as simple as one thing will seal the whole car the whole way around. So many of these teams have to find that right balance where they might risk losing some speed in one part of the racetrack and some handling off the corners like Trevor Perry to be able to get that right balance from turns 1 and 2, which is so bottom dominant to be able to build a run to 3 and 4.
Yeah, and something curious we have seen is a select few drivers able to make the outside work there through turn 2, most notably. Could be down to the setup. They've made a car that turns very well and keeps the momentum up on the top side of the track as we see some action up here in 6th place. Patrick Moose and Stephen Massey starting to come back after being stuck on the outside for what seemed like an eternity. Finally gets himself to the bottom side of the racetrack. Slight amount of damage to his right rear, but doesn't seem to be holding him up because he's starting to put a lot of pressure now on the back of that 17.
Yeah, absolutely right now. There's a lot of that pressure, and if you're Patrick Moose, you need to be able to stay nice and calm and keep focused. If you're the other drivers, you take advantage of moves like that. Massey able to take advantage of the bottom side. That's going to set up a great opportunity for Hudson, we've just seen, to get a run to take the bottom as well.
And a great move there as he will capitalize and take the spot away. Hudson moves up now into P7. And Moose shows us once again the outside is not the place to be. You've got to get down to the bottom as soon as you lose out, because you will lose out quite some more. The field now is starting to spread out considerably after the very close quarters battling we had in the early running of this race. Still quite close here for 40. This is Jerry Kite trying to get by Jonathan Dalrymple up on the top side of the racetrack. Dalrymple will slot down behind him. And Jerry Kite now trying to get by Jake Hickson as well. But Dalrymple coming back with that slipstream.
Yeah, a lot of dicing and weaving. As the pit window is open, we have seen Nick Olsen and Michael Jeans come in. And a huge slide. Looks like he's going to dive his way in as well here. So the pit window wide open for a lot of these drivers in the teens.
That was about as close as you want to get to contact coming in a pit road. It's so tough to come down a pit road on an oval when you're in a field of cars. When you got guys tucked up onto your rear spoiler, whether he told the guys behind he was pitting, I don't know, because that was incredibly close. I didn't make much effort to not be following him through that corner as you normally would if you knew they were coming down. But he makes it into pit road. He just avoided a speeding penalty, and it's a relatively routine stop for him. So this could force quite a few drivers to pit now, because once someone pits, it creates a chain reaction. If you don't want to go for the overcut strategy, you have to react instantly. Otherwise, you get caught in no man's land and you lose a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the amount of fall-off that's seen at this racetrack with this package. Already the fall-off for these drivers, 1.6 seconds. Think about it. Just 2-lap undercut, you lose ground by someone, or pick up 3 seconds, rather, on the racetrack. You lose that, rather, if you stay out. So it's kind of where you have to balance that for drivers, as Massey is under attack for 5th.
And on the bottom of the track, Josh Mickelmore continuing his charge. Couldn't keep it going there. Almost had him cleared. In fact, he had his nose in front of the line last time by. But this time, he's going to lose out to Hudson. Momentum is key in these Cup cars. They've had quite a bit of time now to get used to keeping that momentum up with these new package cars that we've had for 2019 and 2020. But it's still so difficult when you make a move and you don't complete it to not lose a spot.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where you kind of have to have a little bit of give and take, where you have to think of the move smartly, but at the same time, you don't want to end up forcing it. What I mean by that is, with the amount of momentum, if you run side by side too much, you lose ground, potentially, at least a couple tenths a lap. You burn up the tires up to 20% in dirty air alone. Compare that to the top two, who's basically in clean air right now, make it the top 3, and you're absolutely sailing. So that top 3, in much more of a better situation, Mickelmore with a smart undercut.
Down on the pit road then comes Mickelmore. He'll look to find his lollipop man and not slide through his bay, which is another issue that can cost you quite a bit of time, as Will Norton now looking to progress with damage to the front bonnet for him as well. So he's run into issues in this race already. I think about half the field has run into issues in this race, courtesy of lap 1. He's trying to find his way inside the top 10. He's got Corey Wolf tucked up in front of him. As Patrick Moose now, the latest car, to take that line down onto pits.
And it makes sense for a lot of these drivers to come in around this time, because many of these competitors can basically split the race into one stop from here. The fuel run, they only have to go, say, 53 laps or so. Then they can make it to the checker flag. That's why Stephen Massey, for example, just ducked down. Question's going to be when the leaders come down. They have a gigantic advantage right now with the team 1, 2, 3. It's not going to last that long, though, if they sacrifice it to some of the other competitors who try and undercut them by a significant amount.
Yeah, exactly. And now, for the guys that have already pitted, the guys that pitted extremely early, Mickelmore, of course, just coming in, but there was, Jerry Kite coming down too. He's ahead of Mickelmore on the racetrack. They are going to have a massive advantage here. Guys like McKissick might find themselves coming under a little bit of pressure because right now, Jerry Kite's been on the track for what, 5 to 6 laps? That's a massive advantage on fresh tyres. McKissick,
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
this stage, would probably have to look at the overcut strategy.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what his team's looking at probably at this point with the way this race has flown, as two teammates now look to scrap on just a couple laps difference tires. So many of these drivers coordinate, such as the Bobby Dale Earnhardt Legacy Esports machines you see on your screen, trying to coordinate their strategies and figure out when they're going to come in and try and find their way up to the field. Here's the counterpoint, though, with the undercut strategy. Eventually, you sacrifice the time back to the drivers who have the fresher tires. That's why I think Gene's went by Sean Disbro, knowing he's had a little bit faster speed despite the fact the back end's crushed in.
Yeah, Nick Olsen is well on fresh tyres. Was not waiting around for Jeans to get out of the way there. He forced his way down to the bottom side as Dylan Parker comes down on the pit lane. Jonathan Dalrymple's made a pit stop as well. So now, it's more cars have pitted than those that haven't. 6 cars remain in the lead lap. 5 cars make that with Parker on pit road.
Yeah, and at this point, it's pretty clear that based on who we've seen stay on this racetrack, all the teammates are probably going to stretch as long as they can. Maybe go at 100 laps, then try and split it at 50 laps. Curious to see, though, drivers such as this, one of the Black Flag machines, look to try and fight and see how they're doing. That team has quietly been up and down the past couple seasons. They're starting to head back on the up train, though, with the organization that's coming around them.
They're starting to find some progress and going to be people to watch, I think, getting towards the latter stages of the season. Brendan McKissick comes into pit road. That looked like a very slow entry to me, Justin.
In fact, that was all the teammates, in fact, coming in there, Ryan, too. With what was Norton as well coming down. So everyone coordinated there. But interesting, yes. I don't think it's going to hurt too much since he had a big advantage, but there's a lot of drivers who are very talented at charging him. Malik Gray comes, for example, who tries to go near full throttle up to the cone and smash the brake pedal to be able to gain as much time. That can gain you up to 2 seconds on a pit entry alone.
It certainly can. So, where does McKissick come back out? He's behind Zach Hudson, who hasn't made a pit stop just yet. I believe Hudson's the only driver yet to make a stop. So he's going for an extremely long run here. And McKissick emerges still in the provisional lead of the race despite staying out all that extra time. So right now McKissick has a massive advantage because he's got fresh tyres on the guys behind as well.
Yeah, right there already, McKissick back on the lead lap. So this is going to be a massive amount of lost time for Hudson. And he had to come down eventually. That is the call right there. Only Justin Johnson, I believe, is in that scenario where he hasn't pitted this window quite yet. And he, mind you, is still far back on the racetrack compared to some of the others. About 3 seconds. They're nearly stacking up behind the 27 right now. Look at this.
Justin Johnson causing rush hour traffic there. 4 wide for a moment. 3 wide as well. And who was that? Honeycutt. The biggest gainer out of that. He flew by about half a dozen cars in one fell swoop. And Dustin Johnson, so much slower on his old tyres. You catch him in the wrong moment and you have to check up. It checks up so many people. Garrett Maines all the way on the top of the racetrack there, losing an absolute ton of time as Perry gets sideways as well. Sean Disbro sweeps around him. They're almost 3 wide behind them too.
Yeah, and this is going to get dangerous for some of these drivers at this point. If you've gotten clear, you just try and focus on your strategy at this point. Hope the race screen and see how it cycles through. If you're Johnson, though, this is a scenario where you're hoping and praying for a caution flag. Already 7 seconds lost to the race lead. He's going to potentially lose a lap and a half at least by the time he has to pit. And he's got a problem all the way up in the marbles. His tire might be starting to go down.
That tire might blow with the new tire model. It can happen. He's pushed that thing, I think, to the edge. He's got to come down a pit road. That's exactly what he's going to do. Gets it slowed down as gently as he can. and comes down to pit lane. He, I think, might have gone with the wrong strategy play there. Might have been praying for a caution. He nearly caused a couple. It didn't come out. And they're 3 wide on the back straight away again. Stephen Massey in the middle. Down the bottom is Dylan Parker. Going backwards up top is the number 8 of Joe Schaffer, who I think is on old tyres too, based off his car pace.
And mind you, that is a lap car that's in the mix of things here, so a lot of slicing and dicing. Many of these drivers, though, I think have to play it smart here because lots of traffic, lots of different tire strategies. You can already see Parker has the faster car right now at this point of the run with the way the strategy's gone, and everyone is now trying to freight train Jeans to get that position.
Interesting to note, while we continue to watch this, Garrett Maines had to come down to pit road twice and make that a 3rd time. Some big issues then for the number 1 driver in the session, and he's out of this race 6 laps down, and he retires that car after the issues on pit road. So a big shame to see him out of it. He would have been a contender for the race win.
Yeah, he had a pretty fast car based on what was going on with the testing for that organization throughout the week. Unfortunately, had technical issues early on in the race. That put him down behind the 8 ball much of this event. Didn't get the caution flags. He needed to even be back in contention, and now he's in a scenario where he's not even going to have a chance to win the race. So, unfortunate for Maines. Only 1 car can pass him, though. That's the bright side in Ryan Doucette.
Yeah, and Doucette circulating as well as he can. 47 laps off the pace at the moment, as Michael Jeans all over the back of Nick Olsen. He's going to get his nose to the bottom side of the racetrack across the start-finish stripe, almost coming up on halfway through this race. And Josh Mickelmore now trying to progress as well. Mickelmore lost an absolute ton of time stuck behind Dustin Johnson, so he's still trying to recover from that as he gets to the bottom of Jeans, and Tanner Love's going to try to follow him through.
And as a driver, I'd be absolutely banging my steering wheel, to be honest, in that Exodus machine. Because, you know, you have a faster car. The problem is the traffic management. So it's kind of a situation where when you're outside of the car, you think, oh, it just had to play nice and calm. But the driver's instinct is always pass whoever you can. So you just kind of have to balance that mindset and discussion point, Ryan, to be able to be in the situation like Mickelmore, who has some good pace with that pretty long run he had on the tires.
Yeah, now, of course, the undercut that he would have had was dampened by that big checkup with Johnson, so he's got to be careful not to use up his tires now, getting all these spots back, because he's not in as good a position, tire longevity-wise, as the guys he's just passed, like Sean Disbrow and Tanner Love just in behind him. We're still going to see another pit stop in this race, though, for all of the drivers out on the racetrack. So, still chance for them to equalise. Still a chance, of course, for another wild card to be thrown in with a caution at some stage. Patrick Moose coming under pressure for P5. Presley Sora starting to come back as they run door-to-door through turn number 2. And Moose just struggling up top for some grip. A little bit sideways coming off the corner, but he's still got a great turn of pace up top on the outside, trying to hold it there as they run through turn 3 and 4. He's not going to be able to do it. And watch out for Stephen Massey back there in 7th place as well.
Yeah, with Presley Sora, one of the drivers to keep an eye on, I think, in the next couple of years across this iRacing service. One of the drivers of the NASCAR Ignite Series at one point. And he's showing that good speed right now in his Indy Autosport car to try and pull away. But look how much right now that draft is helping out Massey. As long as you have a fairly clean front nose, you can get a little bit of slipstream down the straightaways, and that can help you tug yourself forward for passes like that. Massey is now up to that 6th position. One thing to note with Sora, though, here, Ryan, that's a plus 18 on the race. One of the biggest movers on the track.
Indeed. A few big movers in this race. Presley Sora is up 18, as you mentioned. Tanner Love is up 26 spots. Josh Mickelmore up 19. Sean Disbrow up 16, and Michael Jeans up 19 as well. All those drivers have fought well early on, and all those drivers were in the middle of the field. You might not have seen it, Justin. Jay would have behind the scenes. The massive crash through turn 2 on lap 2 that involved about half the field. They all managed to get through it somehow without much damage.
And that is where some of the starting position games come into play too, that potentially factors in. You never know if there's going to be a big one, of course, on lap number 1. But a lot of drivers try and keep it cool at the start to be able to, if it goes a long run, be able to pace themselves. These drivers have paced themselves pretty well, I have to say, though, in this middle stint here was still 1 pit stop to go for a vast majority of the field. I'm curious to see how this is all going to play out, though, I have to very much say, though, because you can see the difference in how these drivers have built their setups in their respective teams and organizations and the amount of work that's put in, where these cars that are best in the long run again are the ones that are blistering their way into the top 5 right now.
Exactly, and I think you can't set your car up for a short run. This is the 7th round of the NASCAR iRacing series, and this Friday night strength of field has had quite some racing happening, and if you know you're going to enter this particular time slot and you've entered or seen the previous races, you know that long runs are the order of the day, and very rarely have we seen short runs. We have some technical issues with the server at the moment, which should resolve in a moment's time, hopefully. Just some issues on the iRacing, and we'll go to a Scenic Cam for now until that sorts out. But, you know, last week at Miami, we had a spate of short runs at the end. Miami's a track that pretty easy to do. The corners there are very long and rounded, so you're turning a lot more easy to get into the back of someone. But somewhere next week, like Bristol, that could be somewhere where you've got to set up for a short run, Justin, because, well, Bristol is Bristol. It's a short track. It's the most short track feeling circuit that we go to. It's an absolute coliseum. It's a beast to drive, and the racing there can go either one of 2 ways, can't it?
Yeah, exactly. It can either be where you have a very long flow to the race, where you might have a 100-lap run, and that's where the long run comes in. But then there's the majority, have to be quite frank, in the short run being very key. And you have to remember, Ryan, part of that leads to that is the difficulty of pass at Bristol Motor Speedway, especially since the top line is so dominant, and the bottom line, it can take you 5-10 laps just to pass one car potentially. So there's so many factors in that for Bristol and many different teams. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of focus on not just the short run to be able to battle in, say, the first 30-40 laps of a run, Brian, at Bristol for a lot of these teams, but also in terms of Q trim to give yourself track position to be able to be at the front, because if you're at the back, it could be a long race.
Yeah, exactly right. And, of course, the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series is running there on Tuesday night, American time. I had to pause. It's Wednesday for us, Justin. But that also means we should see quite a lot of Coca-Cola drivers running next Friday night, because, as we've seen, when Coca-Cola are running, the drivers turn up for some redemption come Friday. Auto Club, the best example of that. We had about 10, 15 professional drivers running, and that was still the best race I have ever commentated on.
And that doesn't even factor in the development drivers, the other team members who are a part of that, where they were the vast majority of the field in that race, who have access to those setups and were a part of the building process. So it absolutely is a major factor. I wouldn't be surprised to see that same potential total at Bristol, because if you're, I remember back, for example, where it was night racing action a little while ago, where it was a full distance 500 laps, if you remember last season, a lot of drivers put a lot of focus in that, because it's the first time in a few years that the series had been at Bristol for the pros. Many drivers ended up using that almost as a way to adjust things and be able to learn how the car was going to react for their race. So they're using it, the race, throughout the week, mind you, including right now, mind you, Ryan, to learn how Bristol's going to be. If it works out, they're potentially going to race in other cases, they're going to use it as a way to redeem themselves if they have a bad run at Bristol.
Yeah, it's a shame that the Coca-Cola Series runs before this event, because I have the feeling, Justin, if this was run before Coca-Cola, we'd see probably half the field as those drivers, because it'd be the perfect test event for them, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to factor in there is the potential of drivers not completing the event, for example, once they get the data, etc. So there's different kinds of factors, and I think the main thing is, as professionals or as an organization, do you want to give your drivers that advantage of that
Yes.
on before the actual race? You know what I mean? Or do you want to see how they react with what they've done in testing mainly as their main source outside of 1.5 days of total official racing?
Yeah, see, that's the point I hadn't thought of, because I'm nowhere near that level. At least you, Justin, are at least high enough iRating to be in this top split, so you know what it's all about as a driver towards the top end of the spectrum. Whereas I run around in 9th split when I attempt to do these races. So, it's a very good point. And Jay's in 25th split, he just said behind the scenes. When you get to the top, there's just so much to consider. And this is why the racing's so good, because there are people that consider all of these things. And most of the drivers, or some of the drivers running in here, are involved in teams that are in that professional series. They're testing setups, they're running setups that the main guys use. There's also guys in here, Justin, that, you know, no less of a driver, they're just as good. They're out there running for themselves.
Yeah, there's some of those types of organizations, absolutely, that have drivers who are good at that, but a lot of the organizations are up in this topper echelon. The best of the best drivers I can think of who are in that kind of level, who might be on the sole side, like a Max Harris currently in potentially 2nd or 3rd split, for example, in terms of racing action and NIS competition. He's had some good runs in his race car. There's a few others that come to mind where you kind of need that setup knowledge to be able to succeed at NIS in the open competition, especially top split. Being with a high-level organization helps you get to the next level in performance.
It certainly does. And this is where esports is really starting to make its gains in leaps and bounds as these organizations come together. And with the situation that is devastating for the real life and for all of us involved with so many things out there, it is also, on the flip side of the coin, as bad as the situation is, a good thing for esports in general, as it receives so much exposure. And in the future, when life resumes as normal, we can only hope and maybe even expect at this point, Justin, that esports is going to become a bigger part of motorsports in general.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you that it could be absolutely huge, and there was always that potential. We weren't expecting, of course, what was going to happen, and in turn, the momentum that's come on forward. Let me put it this way, Ryan. A lot of the teams in the Coca-Cola Series have been helping out a lot of these drivers with coaching to prepare themselves for the race on Sunday on Fox and FS1, for example. So there's that real-world connection, real-world teams and drivers joining the Coca-Cola Series. And mind you, too, don't forget, there are teams that are trying to build themselves to that point, which have built sponsorships, such as the drivers we followed along with Bobby Dale Earnhardt Legacy Esports, that are having some big exposure with these types of events and put a lot of emphasis for their sponsors and the organization on succeeding at tracks such as this to show how they can perform.
Most certainly, and we do have a little battle on the track starting to come together, Justin, here. For 5th place, Patrick Moose and Presley Sora. These guys have been slowly coming together over the last few laps. Last time by, Sora ran just a couple hundredths of a second slower than him. Let's run through how the top 10 stands. Let's go to the front. Brendan McKissick has a 7.7 second lead back to JD Willis in 2nd. He's comfortable right now. No one around him. It's another 3 seconds back to Caden Honeycutt there in 3rd, exactly where he started. Dylan Parker back in 4th. There's 14 seconds adrift. And then Patrick Moose in this battle for 5th. It's a little bit close from here on out. Then we got Presley Sora right in behind him. A couple tenths down the road is Stephen Massey and Zach Hudson, who's actually just found his way by him. Tanner Love is just off the back of these guys as well. And then another second down the road is Josh Micklemore rounding out the top 10.
Some absolutely fast cars in the top 10. And keep an eye on that left side ticker too, because 11th place is slowly trying to keep within range as well. And Michael Jeans for that fight. Surprisingly, just 14 drivers currently on the lead lap at the moment with the way this race has flowed. But Presley Sora has been having an impressive, absolutely really strong run for that team. With the chance for a top 5, the race has been progressing. The way this has been progressing, rather.
You talk about the top 15. There's 14 drivers left on the lead lap. The pace of the guys out front, well, the guy out front, Brendan McKissick, has been so strong that he's put half the field a lap down. A lot of strong cars are running a lap down. Will Norton's been running up the front in so many of these races. He's 16th in a lap down at the moment. Eduardo Oliveira is back there. Joshua Campbell, Jake Hickson, Nick Olsen, Trevor Perry has now fallen to adrift of the lead. So the pace is very strong, and if we do get a caution, you're gonna have to make an interesting decision. If you're a single lap off the pace, you have to pit because you need fuel. But at the same time, if you take your wave around and hedge your bets on another caution, you do get that lead lap back. You can gain more spots than if you're a lap down. But it's an interesting thing that these drivers have to think about if we do get those yellow lights on the racetrack.
Yeah, that's the absolute gamble at this point, because we're inside the fuel window. These drivers, remember, stretch to as long as this point of the last stint. 61 laps, coming to 60 laps to go right now. So already, we're seeing that opportunity, say, with the 18 machine, as you can see right now, pinning from the back end of the top 20. So some drivers, I think, have to try that gamble, though, Ryan, to be able to get a good position. Others, I absolutely see them trying to stretch it at least to 50 or 40 to go, and then coming down to the pit lane, especially if you're, say, Zach Hudson, if you remember, was one of the drivers who stretched it the longest.
Yeah, and if you're Brendan McKissick, what do you do? For him, if he hasn't got anyone spotting for him, it's going to be a little bit hard to tell when some of the guys are pitting. He's so far out in front of them. But he doesn't have to go either one extreme or the other. He's so comfortable. He can probably just pit in the middle of the window here and still come out with a very handy lead.
He's obviously discussing this potentially with some of the fellow teammates that are up at the front of the field, you have to think, because he did have Jose Solis, for example, at the start spots for one point. He has Jacob Hall watching for the 7 car, for example, the 3rd place machine. Will Norton amongst some of the other drivers with Jake Matheson. So there's all that discussion going within team conversations right now, maybe, for a couple of these drivers that are thinking of that to try and bank how they're going to go. Don't forget here, look at this. Massey fighting as more pit stops are currently down the lane.
Jerry Kite comes down to pit road again. That's a shame, because that's going to put him out of contention. Sean Disbro brings it down towards his pit box as well. So he's pulled the trigger on his pit stop. As we continue to watch this battle, Stephen Massey all over the back of Presley Sora, trying to find a way through. It's not going to come here through 1 and 2 this time by, but if he can set himself up for a run out of the corner, he should be able to get to his inside as Sora gets a bit loose and a bit of a wiggle on down the back straight away. Massey's going to pull to his inside and should complete this move very easily now to turn 3, and he does.
And that's been always part of the issue. If you slide up off to the top line in turn 2, there's some little bumps there. If you hit those bumps, it can shake around the race car in that case. So we're losing the grip. We have had Caden Honeycutt dive down. One of the top 3 drivers is into the pit lane. That might mean his teammates might follow suit soon, or they might try different strategies.
Yeah, I think we would probably expect to see them all come down at the same time here. Honeycutt, of course, was running in second. He was challenging McKissick at one stage. Then he fell backwards behind J.D. Willis. So be interesting to see whether McKissick's going to follow him here. He's not. He's going to stay out on the racetrack. So Honeycutt, depending on how long McKissick stays out, may be able to undercut him.
Oh, trouble turn 2, the 18 spinning.
And the caution's going to come out, and he's been collected by the 30. Oh, no, McKissick! McKissick's involved!
Oh, my.
The race leader spins, collects the slow cars there, and our race leader, how comfortable was he out front, has been involved in an incident with the lap cars.
Knowing McKissick, he is furious right now in that cockpit. As we take a look at the race replay here, just that 18 just lost a lot of grip throughout whole turn 1 and 2. Jeans has no time to stop, and McKissick, he has no time to stop. He's trying to focus on the corner exit. So just a bad chain of events.
You're right, a bad chain of events. We're right on board with Brendan McKissick. Nothing he can do. He's coming through here right now. He's committed. He sees him. He's trying to slow down. He can't do it. He got into the fence because he was on the brakes and his engine's got some serious damage. He's lost the bonnet. He will not win this race. And that is the dangers of oval racing. You don't often see it on the mile and a half, the cookie cutters. It's normally something you see on the short tracks with leaders being involved in lapped car accidents. But that there is why you can never let your guard down. You have to always be aware of what's going on around you. But even then, sometimes there is nothing you can do.
Yeah, you've seen with how he hit that wall on the outside, for example. He was trying to lock it up, trying to stop the car as much as he could, minimize damage, but with how much speed he was trying to carry on the corner exit, I think he might have been expecting, say, the cars to move down to the bottom of the racetrack. There just wasn't enough time to react, and now this completely changes the race. The drivers who just undercut, they're going to have to potentially take wave or hope for the lucky dog. Other drivers are now in a situation where they're back in contention if they were set up for the short run and try and take advantage here.
Yeah, this is going to change this race massive. This restart is going to be wild. Now, on my timing screen, Justin, I'm seeing Caden Honeycutt as the first car lap down. It would suggest he's going to get the lucky dog. We'll have to stay tuned as to whether that's the case or if anyone gets a lucky dog. If the first car... Oh, it's Corey Wolf that got it. He's the lucky dog then. So he gets himself back on the lead lap. And all these drivers, Honeycutt, Perry, Mickelmore, Johnson, Olsen, Norton, and Disbro are all going to have to take the wave around and pray that their tyres are still good enough to keep pace with the lead lap cars as we see a broken and destroyed number 5 of Brendan McKissick there. You cannot help but feel sorry for that man.
Yeah, I feel bad, honestly, in this situation because he was the dominant car. He had the best car in the whole entire stable of his organization that was dominant in this race. For it to end like that, you're not going to be happy as a contender whatsoever. So at this point, McKissick's in a situation where you have to absolutely feel bad for what looked to be a race-winning car tonight.
Yep, and while it is disappointing for McKissick, it takes out the dominant car. As much as we hate the situation it's unfolded from, it opens the race up now to so many more people because it was looking like Willis might have been the only person that was able to challenge him. And even then he was 8 seconds adrift. Now suddenly anyone, Willis, Parker, Moose, Hudson, Massey, Dalrymple even back then, Sora too, these guys could all challenge for the lead. This is going to be crazy. 11 cars on the lead lap at the moment. A lot of them going to get a wave around. We should end up with 20 lead lap cars once the field comes back to the green.
And now this becomes a situation where you mentioned different contenders and all kinds of wave rounds we see, such as Oliveria right round, for example, in 20th position. At this point, you're hoping for a quick caution to get on fresh tires. The thing is, though, too, J.D. Willis, remember, had a decent car as well. It's just the fact that McKissick was in his own zip code much of the race. And Willis was still a good car, pulling away by the end of the runs by 3-4 seconds from his own teammates. So I think Willis, he's in a strong chance to try and take home the checker flag. But you have to keep an eye on Zach Hudson from what we've seen, as well as Massey, to see what they can do in the top 5 right now.
And it's been 23 laps since Perry pitted, been 43 since Johnson pitted. So those two are going to be halfway down struggle street when they restart, because their tyres are not going to hold up compared to the guys around them, as now a whole host of cars get the wave around and will look to get themselves back around onto the lead lap and formed up before we restart. Brendan McKissick is back out on the racetrack, but he's missing most of the front assembly of that number 5 machine. He's going to have a lot of damage, but he's still out there trying to find some points in the minor placings as the ticker ticks down to 50 laps to go. Going to be a 49 to go when we restart, and it's going to be J.D. Willis restarting the field with Dylan Parker to his outside.
Yeah, that's an interesting front row. I'm curious to see what Parker can do based on what I've seen, though, from these cars. The bottom line is the preferred line, and many of these drivers are going to get good starts on that line. It's the matter, though, of how will that top line hold on to the momentum, I think, especially second row back.
Well, let's find out. This is going to be wild. There's no limits in Texas. We know that. Let's put it to the test then. Field on the hands and the control of J.D. Willis as he jumps on that throttle. And a big checkup behind Zach Hudson. On the top of the track, he has to dive down in front of Dalrymple to block that off as they snake their way into turns 1 and 2. It's a good start for J.D. Willis, and Dylan Parker coming under a bit of pressure from Patrick Moose.
And I think if you're third on back, I wouldn't be surprised with what we've seen in many of these types of races. See a lot of passes and a lot of trouble. Nick Olsen just got some contact. The Crit Motorsports machine just able to save it and keep the car rolling on the racetrack.
That was a great save for him. Half on the apron, reminiscent of Kyle Busch in 2012 at Daytona in the shootout. He gathers it up, similar to that, and he'll keep going. Lost a bunch of spots.
Now these competitors still have to stay single file, though it is difficult to try and get passes timed up. You have to be smart. Try and build up speed down the straightaway and get the run. From what we're seeing already from these cars, though, they're very even balanced on the short run. Many of these teams, I think, have figured out how to time things up for freight train situations like this. Just a couple months ago, Ryan, it was kind of a mixed bag. Now, it seems everything is equalized at this point of the season.
It certainly has, and what we're starting to see is fantastic racing as a result. People have figured out this package, and it's working well. J.D. Willis has started to pull a gap. It's 3/10 back to Moose in second. After the battle with Sora, Caden Honeycutt, meanwhile, just ran the fastest lap of the race, but he is all the way down in... I can't even find him. Where is he? He's
10th.
Back in 10th. So, the slipstream, that's how powerful it is. He ran the fastest lap of the race, even with the dirty air. The slipstream pulling that car along. As Tanner Love goes by Presley Sora, we see it from the bonnet cam as he dives through on the bottom of the track and almost gets to the left rear of Dalrymple. And now he gets alongside him, so Love's going to get 2 for his efforts here. If he can keep that car straight, he was fighting the rear end as he entered the back straight that time. They're side by side up ahead for second place too, you can see that, as Parker goes back into second, and they're starting to catch Willis again.
Yeah, that's the slipstream starting to come in. Here's the problem. Everybody is going to have to deal with the dirty air. Have to get off the gas a little bit more. Willis, he's able to stay full throttle right on that racetrack, and that's the main difference between clean air and dirty air. Because he's able to carry more momentum than this freight train, Willis is in the better situation for tires compared to, say, the drivers fighting for 10 near 3 wide.
Caden Honeycutt fighting for 10th. Josh Mickelmore to his outside is not going to be able to defend this. Honeycutt in 9th place will take away some track position. Mickelmore's a lap down, even though he's running in 12th. So although a lot of wave around cars opted to pit rather than get the wave around, so there's only 11 guys. McKissick's the final car in the lead lap, believe it or not.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. That is a battle for the Lucky Dog position. You've seen in that scrap a little bit. That's the reason Micklemore was trying to charge through. And McKissick is now the Lucky Dog car. Keep an eye, though, on these drivers because the speed difference, massive. McKissick was lucky to have the 6-minute blown engine, so to speak. That means repairable, but not terminal. And already, they're going to pass right by like a freight train for the Lucky Dog.
Repairable, not terminal, but not really raceable, is it? Look how much slower McKissick is, topping out at 260 kilometers an hour, which is something in miles, Justin. He's 4 seconds a lap slower. That's a universal time system we can use, and that's quite a lot around a 28-second racetrack.
Yeah, 162 miles an hour for fans watching from the United States and across North America. 20-mile-an-hour difference compared to the drivers trying to stay in the slipstream train. But Sora has good short-run speed, it seems, in the first 20 laps or so. Massey, though, he's been flexing his muscles for the past couple weeks or so in that 15 machine, trying to prove his worth on the iRacing service and try and prove a couple naysayers wrong from what I've been able to tell from what's been going on.
Up front, JD Willis starting to come under a bit of pressure as well because Parker is not letting him go and he's starting to chase him. But oh, look behind this. In fact, Jake Hickson, Micklemore, Hudson, Dalrymple in a mess here. They were almost making contact down the back straightaway. Hickson's a lap down. So is Micklemore. They're fighting for the Lucky Dog. Dalrymple behind them is on the lead lap, and Hudson at the front of the train is also on the lead lap.
And this is frustrating if you're a lead lap car, but I don't blame the lap cars for racing. There's kind of two different mindsets. You can either keep it nice and calm and not battle for the Lucky Dog in a lot of the cases, or you test the speed you have in the race car and fight like we're seeing right now. That's what Hickson and Micklemore are doing, where they know this could be the difference between a potential top 10 based on the speed compared to the lap cars, and potentially a top 20 finish instead.
Yeah. And if you get the Lucky Dog, you could win the race. Josh Micklemore, we saw in the first stint how much pace he had. If he gets himself back on the lead lap and there's a late caution, he could still win this thing. Especially with the racing we saw early on. If the top 10 or top dozen cars get bunched up and congested like they did earlier on. At the moment, the restart played out in a manner that allowed JD Willis to put a bit of a gap on the field as Parker and Moose battled away and really held themselves up in the process. Look at this for 7th place.
Yeah.
Zach Hudson and Honeycutt going side by side here.
Yeah, just up the road from where Hickson is. You see that just to the left side of your screen. And that's the thing. Honeycutt, remember, had the help of the slipstream for the fastest lap of the race. That doesn't matter, though, when you're stuck in the traffic. That's just the effect of the draft. And again, it comes on back. Hudson, I think, has the better car at the moment. He's just not been close enough to the rest of the leaders to be able to contend, it seems, tonight so far, Ryan.
He's got pace, but not quite enough pace. And if he does, he's not been in the right spot at the right time to utilize it. So, probably another driver hoping for a late caution here because you have to restart from the back of the leading group of cars when we went green. So he's got himself about halfway through that little group, and now I'll be hoping that he can have another crack at it. But at the moment, everyone is looking very clean out there on the racetrack. The battle for P2 starting to fall away from JD Willis. Is out to half a second now, the gap for the 32 car. Just 2 tenths between Parker and Moose for second.
Yeah, and Tanner Love, again, is someone that really impresses me when it comes to his performance in the mile-and-a-half circuits here, Ryan, because it's, with the way I understand the logic with that organization, what Love currently works with collective drivers who try and help each other build setups. Love ends up being one of the top performers when it comes to that stable, and always seems to show up at these types of racetracks, especially in the first 30 laps. This is the best I've seen Love perform in a little while, in fact, on these mile-and-a-half circuits to put himself in the conversation for top 3.
Yeah, this is the best I've seen him in this series too, so doing a very good job, finding a big improvement this week. It's a setup or it's a driver's seat. The track works for him, or the setup he's got is really in tune with this track. And one of those drivers maybe where a bit of inexperience relative to the guys around him equalized with this new addition to iRacing, the reconfigured Texas.
That's the thing though, Tanner Love, while he may not be at the front in a lot of the races we've seen here, the thing is, he's always someone that's running on, say, official races across the iRacing service in a open competition, for example, where he's always a staple a lot of the time to be inside the top 5 or top 10 by the end of the race if he keeps the car clean. So he's just that type of driver that does have that talent. The Lucky Dog battle is continuing on here, should note. But another thing, 13th on back is getting dicey as well, where Sean Disbrow is having to hold off Tony Mongi right now in side-by-side fighting.
Sean Disbrow trying to hold him off as Tony Mongi down on the bottom of the racetrack, going to get a helping hand from Will Norton, who dives to the bottom, thought about 3 wide. There wasn't quite enough momentum to make that work, and Disbrow's going to switch from the top to the bottom. No, goes back to the top of the racetrack. Try to drive it back around the outside of the number 20 car down on the bottom. A 4-car scrap here for 13th place on the racetrack. 3rd car a lap down. Not even for a lucky dog, but every position matters in these races. Look how aggressive Norton's being, trying to find the bottom. Almost found the wall as he got into the grass.
Yeah, Tony is someone that can be aggressive in these types of situations, showing that right here. He knows that every position matters, and Sean, I think, is having it up for the hard battle. He tried to use his teammate as a pick a little bit.
And this is I was going to say it's moments from disaster. There it is. Disbrow spins into the grass, gathers it up. No, he spins, rejoining, and he's going to be collected by Joshua Campbell. Cautions out. We're going to have about a 27-lap sprint to the end here, and Disbrow was mere moments away from catching it, and then he wasn't.
And it just looked like that might have been partly reactionary from the door-to-door contact when they had to get by Jeans there. And that just, I think, is just what led to all of that, the emotions boiling over. Tony also at the same time, mind you, did push up the track right here to drift right up to the left rear quarter panel and send the 41 into the grass.
And you could almost see that brewing. I was literally opening my mouth to say this is moments away from disaster here, Justin. The way they're racing, and there it happened. You often get that sense, can't you, when you see a group of cars, thanks to Motor Simulation for providing our replays, of course, and Jake Hickson gets a lucky dog. You can almost sense when you see a group of cars whether it's going to end badly or not, because as the race ticks down, you start to become more aggressive and the moves start to become a little risky.
Yeah, and that, you've seen the perfect example of the aggression coming right into play in that situation, and that just led to all of that with everyone knowing that there was positions on the line. Here's the thing though, if you've got a short run car, you're in a perfect spot now. As long as you get a good start, it's a great situation for the short run now with only about less than 25 to go.
And for the drivers out on the racetrack now, they're a lap down, pit lane open to them this time by. What do you do, Justin? Because if you pit, you're resigning yourself to a best... Oh, wow, yeah. Come back to that. Dylan Parker, first car off of pit road. Now...
Well, there's one thing you do.
Yeah, but the guys who are a lap down, if you pit, you're consigning yourself to a best finish of what, about 12th, 13th? If you stay out, you can potentially finish as high as first, but you're on old tyres, you need another caution to come out straight away again. What gamble would you do?
In this situation, I think you have to go for the gamble, honestly, to take the wave around. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what a majority of these drivers elect to do here in this situation. Even guys like Micklemore, who show good speed. Tony, who is going to show good speed. Trevor Perry in the SPG machine, who show good speed. They're in that scenario where, in this type of situation, Ryan, you know there is a high chance of cautions breed cautions. And I'm surprised that he came down to the pit. I think he's going to fight for the lucky dog instead in case it's a long run.
Yeah. Sean Disbro is in pit lane as well. He was a lap down. Nick Olsen and Will Norton have both elected to stay out on the racetrack. As has, of course, Micklemore and Olivier... Oh my god. Oliveria.
Yes.
And Trevor Perry as well. So all those guys will get a wave around and we'll end up with 17 people on the lead lap here.
Yeah, decent amount of drivers at this point, give or take. That's currently the estimate of 14, give or take. Going to scoring. Depends on how things cycle out, though. That's the thing with the amount of drivers in front of the leader. But I find it going to be interesting, though, what we're going to see, Ryan, for that lead. Because Parker now has clean air. I'm curious to see what Willis and co can do in dirty air, and it could be a crazy battle for this race lead in a few moments.
It could, and if they get stuck side by side, almost everyone on the lead lap, barring damage, is going to suck up behind them and create a massive train because running side by side is so much slower. The thing is, it's almost impossible to hold it around the outside, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah.
But say if he was up top and getting a helping hand from a teammate or something, who knows? A situation could arise. All I know is this restart is going to be crazy. 23 laps to go. When we get ourselves back underway, we get the 1 to go signal. Not from the flagman. He's still just holding that flag up in the air. Oh no, I must get sore, surely.
Yeah, possibly. But heck of amount of cars at the very least going on the lead lap. In total, 14. Justin Levine also coming down for a wave, going by for a wave around to go 2 laps down. But again, this is the gamble they have to play to gain track position if they get the quick caution.
What about Tanner Love putting himself up into 3rd place now?
Yeah.
He's got a good shot. Moose to be on the outside of him back and forth. Stephen Massey's back there with Honeycutt. So Honeycutt's going to restart 6th. This is something we earmarked that would benefit probably from a late caution. We know he's got great pace. Has he got enough pace to win the race, though? Is he in the right spot? I think restarting there is pretty good. Behind him, Zach Hudson, Presley Sora. They've both had their spells running around the front, as does Dalrymple, and of course, our lucky dog, Corey Wolf. This is going to be very interesting indeed. We're going to get ourselves a grandstand finish, most likely. 22 to go as we get ourselves back underway in the hands of Dylan Parker out front. He jumps on that throttle. We're back underway in Texas. And a great restart for Parker and for Love. He's going to get to the inside of J.D. Willis.
And Zach Hudson's off on the grass on the bottom of the racetrack. Just barely avoided contact, staying green.
Big shame for him. Tanner Love's got by Willis, and he's got to the inside now of Parker, and Willis is going to help him. Parker's going to lose the lead of the race now, and he might lose more than that as well because Willis goes by. Stephen Massey's going to go by, and Honeycutt's down there too. So's Patrick Moose. Parker might go from the front back to 6th place here, getting freight trained on the top side of the racetrack. There's nothing he can do to defend as Willis loses the rear end and gets sideways. Honeycutt gets loose as a result, trying to check up. Massey had to back out of the throttle. Hard defense down the back straight.
This is exactly what Love was looking for here. If he can get clean air, he's good in these short run situations and is very good at defending the bottom side. Lots of diciness though with these drivers. Curious to see what some of the teammates do. They're staggered on the bottom of the top.
Tanner Love has a 6/10 of a second lead. He's broken the huge slipstream effect. He's in the box seat right now as Massey continues to defend Honeycutt, almost coming together with Willis up top, who's trying to recover from that mistake. And Moose down on the bottom side going to try and follow him through. Sora is in there. Parker's up there, 2x2, 6 cars strong here. Dalrymple just off the back of this little pack as well.
Yeah, this is a lot of diciness, but the more they stay side by side, Ryan, the more Tanner's got the chance to pull away a couple tenths each corner. Honeycutt is really being aggressive on the side draft to try and slow him down, but again, there's not enough grip there as he slides up the racetrack again.
And Moose gets to the bottom of Massey to take away P2. Surely these guys know that they can't keep doing this, so the lead's just going to run away. I said before we went green that if they ran side by side up front, the field would suck up. We've seen that now for second, and conversely, Love is able to drive away. He continues to hold 6/10 of a margin over this group behind us. Willis now goes to second. Honeycutt follows him through. Somehow Moose ended up on the top of the racetrack. Slow car in the way, and Dalrymple had to use the grass.
Yeah, that could have been disaster because many drivers have struggled. Clipping the grass in the quad oval has potentially snapped a lot of them loose. But finally, some of the faster cars from Nexus starting to go single file. Everybody else, though, still needs to find a way to get by Moose & Co.
And J.D. Willis closed the gap as soon as he got free. And caution's out. He closed the gap down to 2/10 of a second. He was flying out there. But the caution flies. We're going to have to stack him up again.
And that is an interesting scenario here. And it's Disbro. Take a look, and you can see he was trying to get some run here. Remember, he's gotten some significant hits. And right there,
Ooh.
just looked like something maybe blown or had a technical issue.
Good job to lock those brakes down too and not slide up back onto the racetrack. So, now this is interesting. So, J.D. Willis was absolutely flying. He closed it by over half a second in just 2 laps after he broke free of the field. Now, he's obviously got the pace, but he made a mistake earlier on those cold tyres, and these tyres are going to cool down again under this caution. If he pits, he's going to have cold tyres, and he might not want that. They only ran about 4 or 5 laps. Is it enough to warrant a pit stop? Do you want to risk giving up track position if someone gambles and stays out?
It was more so on the 10 side. If you stay out here, you have the chance to get freight train. That's the major risk because you're going to be much more tighter. I expect a lot of cars to pit, but don't be surprised to see at least maybe 1 or 2 drivers at the least, maybe 2 tires, gain track position, and hope that clean air is the difference.
Love stays
and
out.
Look at that. Wow.
Even split almost between the field of who pits and who doesn't. Tanner Love stayed out. Willis followed him. Dylan Parker and Stephen Massey also still out on the racetrack. Dalrymple, yeah. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, this looks like for the top 4, you're hoping that they keep on bringing out caution flags if you're staying out at this point. So that's the scenario as Tony gets the lucky dog here, but everybody else, here's the problem, Ryan. They're going to have to pass those drivers. So they're gambling that the fastest drivers aren't going to be able to make their way through the field in time to reach them despite a couple tenths of a second difference each lap.
2 tires, I think, for Honeycutt. Presley, Sora, and Dalrymple took 2 as well. So Patrick Moose with 4, Corey Wolf, Jake Hickson, and Josh Micklemore with 4 tyres. Remember those guys that took a wave around last caution? Now they're back on even terms.
That's why you take the wave around. That's why, Ryan, because the trends have always said in these types of races, it's not going to go green. When there's 24 laps to go, knowing drivers can make it on fuel when the short run's important, someone's going to end up having something happen potentially. Now, it's going to come down to short run speed, and I'm curious to see how the 2 tires are going to work out here for Honeycutt as well as Sora. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made a suspension adjustment to be able to try and balance the handling of the car for this run.
there's a handful of things you can do, Justin, when you have an open setup that you can adjust to the car. One of them is the tape. That's about as far as my setup knowledge goes. I'm a fixed driver, I am, Justin.
Well, a lot of the setup also you can do on the race car when you think about this, Ryan, too, is spring perch adjustments, or spring perch offset specifically. There's different combinations which can, say, put more downforce in the car. Basically make the back end squirm down. Bring the rear end more up into the air. Also affect the handling. That's where a lot of, say, the even splits here and there on different sides can come in. There's a whole bunch of combinations for how you set up the race car in those pit stop adjustments, which may be the difference in a lot of cases between winning and losing. I know there's a lot of teams that have their crew chiefs help them with those adjustments, others that take notes and know what adjustments have worked based on their testing in other competition as well across the iRacing service. So that's where that sometimes comes into play, and having someone help you also comes into play.
Yeah, and you talk about the teammates, the Nexus Esports cars most notably, and those guys lining up for this restart. Can they help each other, give themselves some bump drafts through the latter sections of the track, the back straight in turns 3 and 4, potentially slingshot into the lead of the race? For Tanner Love, what does he do here? JD Willis, so how many cars? Top 4 will be on fresh tyres. Caden Honeycutt, the first car on fresh tyres, top 4 on all tyres. 2 though for Honeycutt, 2 for Sora, 2 for Dalrymple. Is it enough to give them a big enough gain that they can get by these 4 cars in the 11 laps we're going to have remaining here?
I'm curious to see how they're going to handle specifically in the corners. That's where they're going to be going more so 3/4 throttle with how old the tires are at this point for some of these drivers. That's going to be the main difference. Who can get good runs off the corners? I wouldn't be surprised, though, Ryan, to see some potential blocks all the way to the white line, especially down the back straightaway, to secure the bottom. Because, Ryan, if you lose the bottom, you're dropping to the back, especially if you're in the top 4.
Yep, you're done. We saw it. Dylan Parker went from first back to on the fringes of the top 5 when he got stuck on the top side of the racetrack. 11 laps to go when we come to the start-finish stripe here at Texas Motor Speedway. The Lone Star State putting on a show. Love goes early and gets a great jump in front of Willis. Top 5 are going to be single file. Caden Honeycutt stuck on the bottom side, right behind Dylan Parker. Got to be careful he doesn't get into the back of him. He checked up a bit too much, and he got a bit sideways after contact with Moose into the back of him. But they keep it going, and splitting the middle is Jake Hickson with a massive run.
Not sure if I like the move there. Very bold, have to say. But somehow it worked for Hickson. However, Willis is going for the race lead.
He gets to the outside of Tanner Love. Love defending that bottom, not wanting to give it up. Does Willis turn the car down and get the run that he needs? Down the back straightaway, Love doing everything to stay ahead of him and not give him the slipstream. He drove it down the middle of the racetrack, and Willis just using the clean air about half a lane up above him through the corners. And now he should get a massive run down through the quad oval and across the stripe. 10 laps to go, and Love again defending the bottom. Watch for the rest of the field to start to close up. Massey and Sora now the lead car on fresh tyres. Honeycutt puts himself back up into 5th ahead of Dylan Parker.
This is some great battling here, but you can see Love knows the importance of protecting that white line. He's been trying to break the slipstream a couple of times. This time, he's going to try and force Willis to go the long way around. Don't think this is going to work out for that machine, but this is the play you have to do, though. If you're Love, you can't afford to allow any chance for a move, trouble behind them.
Almost there, with 3 wide for a moment. Sora got sideways. Honeycutt didn't lift. Tanner Love in the fence and collected by others. A big crash there in turn 3. What happened between the race leaders? Tanner Love suddenly facing the wrong way.
And Willis, my goodness, what a cut to the bottom of the racetrack, all the way underneath the apron. That's what caused that there, Ryan, where I think he was expecting space from Tanner Love. As you'll see here on the Modem Simulation replay, he didn't give that space. You can see, played the defensive line. This is the way you need to try and hold on to this. But right down the back straightaway, able to ramp it off the banking, is Willis. The problem comes where Willis tries to go underneath the white line. Love, he's committed to the white line, doesn't give the space, and Willis says, okay, I'm just going to turn you.
You don't need to let the car back up on the racetrack.
Exactly.
Once you go down...
Yeah.
There's two rules at play here, Justin. One of them is in an oval car, once you have any sort of overlap, room must be given. But once you go down below the white line, it is legal. You can go down there, but there is no obligation for the car on the normal racing service to let you back up onto it. And so Willis was going by the overlap rule, thinking, I've got an overlap, I will be allowed back on the track here, but Tanner Love was like, no man, you're down on the apron, I'm not letting you back up.
Yeah, and I don't blame Tanner Love for going with that different strategy, with that decision, Ryan, at that point, with how aggressive the move was. I don't blame Willis for trying it. It's just the way it was executed.
Yeah, it was a great move from Willis. The issue is, when Love didn't let him back up on the racetrack, he needed to have lifted off and tried again. If he'd lifted, he would have lost a bit of momentum, sure, but I don't think that chasing pack would have caught him. He would have ended up catching Love again and having another crack at him. There was no reason, I think, for him to take that right turn when the room wasn't given. And it's just shame that Tanner Love won't get an opportunity now to win this race. He's back in 16th, he's down on pit road, he's a lap down, he's out of this. And, I mean, you can see why the incident happened, but at the same time, I don't think the incident should have happened.
It shouldn't have whatsoever. That's where you're way too aggressive. Even for these types of events, Ryan. You can't afford to be that aggressive at any point of the race. Even though it was for the win, potentially, or the lead, I should rather say. Not a smart move.
Yeah, great idea, bad execution. I'll put that down to that, and we will finish that conversation on that note. So, let's look at the drivers that remain in this race. J.D. Willis will lead them. Now, the interesting thing is, does Tanner Love have any teammates that are going to be lining up somewhere near Willis?
I don't believe so. Here's the thing. Willis basically is the only one with teammates in the top four from these drivers. So, at this point, it's going to be interesting. Remember, though, Honeycutt's on 2 tires, Sora's on 2 tires. Everyone else, 10-lap older tires.
Presley Sora and Caden Honeycutt may be the guys in the box seat here, because they're going to have the slipstream, and they've got those 2 fresh tires. Jake Hickson is aggressive. We saw that with that move, and Sora got loose. And then they almost wrecked down the back straightaway behind the leaders, and then the leaders themselves directed to 3. Stephen Massey is the one I'm not sure about. He's carrying a bit of damage. He's been in and around the action all race long, but he hasn't been at the very front of the race. Can he contend and take the lead away? That's the question.
I'm curious because Hickson has shown he's going to be very bold if he's got an opportunity. But I don't know about the speed from what we've seen so far. He's going to need a good run, Hickson, from the 3rd row to get a pass done. Everyone else, it might come down to 1, maybe 2 chances to try and make a pass on Willis for this win.
Well, the lights are out on the pace car. The signal is 1 to go. The drivers now have just 3 laps when we restart. 1 lap over what would be a green-white checkered. If we need a green-white checkered, we have 3 attempts to get it right. If we get back to the white flag before the caution comes out, we will race back to the checkered no matter what happens out there on the racetrack. If a caution comes out before the white flag, we're going to have to go to green-white checkered attempt number 1. As for now, we're still in regulation time. The front row, J.D. Willis and Stephen Massey. Presley Sora and Caden Honeycutt behind. Hickson and Parker off row number 3. Who gets the jump then? This is it. All your cards on the table. Nothing left out on the racetrack. J.D. Willis will control the field, and he gets us back underway. And it's another really good start from him, and Honeycutt giving a big push to Massey, who might get turned by Sora. There's not much gap between them, and somehow he gets down in front of him.
And it looks like they're trying to preserve a good team run at this point. Curious, though, what some of these Nexus cars are going to try and do. Here comes Honeycutt to the inside. He wants to try and get into the top 3.
Side by side with Sora. Massey's got no one alongside him. Honeycutt needs to give him a push.
Oh!
If either of them are going to get their record in the back, that's Dylan Parker spinning down to pit road. They're down on the apron and the infield, so no cautions out. Still a lap and a half left to go. J.D. Willis is looking comfortable right now. They can't get to him. They can't get close enough. And he's got just 2 more corners to navigate before he knows he's coming back to the checkered flag. Caden Honeycutt almost into the side of Sora. It's 3 cars under a blanket for second place. White flag in the air. And J.D. Willis, a gap of 0.2 of a second. Can anyone get there? Through 1 and 2 for the final time. Honeycutt still trying to find a way through for second. They're going to go 3 wide for the second place on the track. The run comes for Sora up top. He slots down to the bottom. Honeycutt through to 3rd. Massey going backwards behind Hickson now. Out front, J.D. Willis. Well, call it what you may, but it's a win for Willis in the NASCAR iRacing Series here on Friday night.
What a race. What an interesting way to finish things off. And there's going to be some very happy team members and some not happy team members in this race, to say the very least. But a 1-3 for Nexus at the checkered flag.
And I think there will be some tempers flared post-race amongst drivers on the situation and the way that Willis got himself into the lead of the race and ultimately the position that won him the race off of that restart. But either way, J.D. Willis will be marked in the history books as the winner in Texas on Friday night in the NASCAR iRacing Series, and that's something that won't be taken away from him no matter what happens in the coming week. As I suspect there might be some fallout between himself and Love. But regardless, we can look at the race results then and look at how the whole field finished up. In the end, the fastest lap went to Josh Mickelmore on the final lap of the race as he came home at the back of the top 10. J.D. Willis margined a victory in the end. Justin, it was a 10th of a second from Presley Sora. Caden Honeycutt coming home in 3rd ahead of Jake Hickson and Stephen Massey. Eduardo Oliveira in 6th. Nick Olsen and Corey Wolf made it 8 cars. Make it 9 cars covered by a second with Dal Rimple back there in 9th. And Josh Mickelmore rounded out the top 10.
Crazy race as Tony Mongi comes home in 11th position. Zach Hudson in 12th. Last drivers on the lead lap were involved in the crash in the grass. Patrick Moose, Dylan Parker finished 13th and 14th. Will Norton in 15th. Tanner Love, after being in contention for the win, ends up finishing 16th instead. Dustin Johnson finishes 17th, 2 laps down. Justin Levine 18th. Adam Jellison in 19th. Michael Jeans rounds out the top 20.
21st across the line, Trevor Perry, 7 laps down. Joshua Campbell, and these are the guys that run into big issues and are retired. Joshua Campbell, Disbro, McKissick, Kite, Schaffer Jr., Garrett Maines, Ryan Doucette, Berry, Brad Wright, and the field, Brian Mercurio, Burns, Miller, Yarborough, McAnally, and Botello. And, well, we're going to get some opinions then, because we have our race winner, JD Willis, with us. First of all, congratulations on the win.
Thank you very much.
Second of all, we have to get your opinion on the contact with Tanner Love.
Yeah, first, I want to apologize to Tanner Love. That was not my intention. I was going for the win. I went too low, and it just, we just made contact. It's not the way I wanted to win it. We had a really strong car, and I wanted to get a good finish for the boys, but not like that. So before we go any further, I just want to apologize to Tanner for that move. That's not how I want to race or win races.
So in hindsight, would you have done differently? I mean, we said in the booth, the idea was great, the execution not so. You went below the apron, and at that point, there's no obligation to be allowed back on the track. In hindsight, what would you do differently?
In hindsight, I would probably not have been so aggressive going down to the bottom, because the apron was not where I was wanting to go. I was just wanting to what I was trying to do was do a good crossover move on him, get to his inside, and have the bottom lane going into 3. And I just put too much wheel into it, and ended up wrecking a pretty good car.
Well, it's a shame that the contact ended that way. Nonetheless, you did get the win today, which is the result you would have been looking for coming in. In terms of this race, the strength of field night for NIS, how frequent are we going to see you running in this series?
I plan on to run every week. Last few weeks been kind of stressful because of the virus and everything, so it's been kind of time schedule's been kind of different here in the last few weeks. But I plan to run every week. And that was actually my first NIS win since 2017, and very, very happy about today's win and bringing it home for Nexus Esports.
Yeah, congratulations on that. Before we let you go, if you're going to run it every week, you're going to have a talk to Tanner Love, because obviously there might be some retribution headed your way, regardless of opinions on whether the incident was or wasn't whose fault.
Yes, I definitely do plan to talk to Tanner. I don't expect him to accept my apology anytime soon, because I would have been very mad in that situation if that was me. And me and Tanner will definitely be having a talk, and hopefully we can have a good mutual talk, and hopefully we can leave the conversation with some kind of understanding. But like I said, I'll definitely be talking to Tanner sometime this week.
Well, thank you for the honesty and the opinion on the incident. We do appreciate that. And before we let you go, now's your time to shed the spotlight on the sponsors and the people that get it done for you.
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank Zach A. Hudson, everybody at Nexus Esports, Robert Miller, Seth Noel, pretty much everybody running the Nexus Esports logo, man. We're a good bunch. We love running these races, and it's especially fulfilling when we bring sets like this to the track. And hopefully we can bring another good set to next week's race, and hopefully we continue this win streak.
Well, congratulations, and we will talk to you next time you perform well on the race, hopefully, and not too distant future. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure.
That was your race winner, JD Willis. And now standing by with Justin Prince is our Caden Honeycutt, who finished today in 3rd.
Yes, indeed. Caden Honeycutt, first off, a 1-3 team performance in the top 3 positions, a 1-3-5 when you include Stephen Massey. First off, talk about the team performance. A heck of a run for your whole organization, despite the finishing order, the way things shaped out.
Yeah, we just have a really, really, really strong card this week at Texas, and I cannot thank Robert Miller, Seth, and Zach, and everyone at Nexus Esports for such a great piece. Man, we were just on rails. Like we've never had a set probably this good in a while, other than the other week at RTP. But with a minute and 10 seconds of optional, I mean, I was still 3rd after I got wrecked. An unfortunate netcode that was pretty bad. That involved some of my teammate Brandon McKissick, who actually probably wish would have won the race after he got an unfortunate mishap with 2 lap cars. But man, we just had a really strong run overall. Everyone, even despite our damage, our teammate JD Willis won. That's his first NIS win in almost 3 years. So I'm really proud of him for sticking with it and being patient. And I know he had a little bit of tough time getting through there. So just a great race, and just wish we didn't get so much damage. I probably could have maybe won again. Since I won Wednesday, I wish I could have won another one, but.
Mhm.
But we have one more, so we'll just get after it again. But yeah, our set was really, really good. I can't thank Nexus Esports.
Absolutely. And some of the experience coming in, of course, and I've always been curious about this from the Arkham Menard series and the races you run in that. How do you try and balance things between your sim racing life and what you do in real life in Arkham Menard series action?
Well, so I basically do the sim racing. So after I run an A fix or a B fix or something like that, if I just want to run one car at one specific place, I'll mostly just run that, take my time off and take my break, and then go do research, find sponsorship, find all that kinds of stuff that I need to do. And then sometimes when I don't end up racing at all throughout the whole day, I just mostly just go out and just work on my race cars. And I just mostly balance in between races that give me time differences that will help me out, and it really just helps me out a lot. Just not racing constant really just helps actually iRating and multitasking. So yeah, that's pretty much how I my differences there.
Now, of course, a lot of the starts you've had in Arkham Menard series action have been on short tracks. That's also been your strength in iRacing. Bristol is next. It just so happens to be a short track. How's the preparation first off going for your team for Bristol, and how do you feel about going to that racetrack?
Since we ran back in the wintertime when we went back in Bristol, me and Wenzel worked pretty good on a set that we felt like was really fast, and we were actually one of the fastest ones that week. So we're really looking forward to Bristol again this week. We're actually probably going to go test tomorrow or whenever we can, and we'll get a set that's set on kill. I mean, James is probably one of the best setup guys on Bristol, and I can't wait to get back there. And Bristol's just basically one of my favorite racetracks at Richmond and Martinsville. Yeah, just being a short track guy, I just can't wait to go to Bristol. And we'll just have to see how the dynamic tracks and all that kind of stuff kind of works. And hopefully the bottom can kind of kick in instead of a one-gear racetrack. So, yeah, we'll just have to see what that happens, and we'll build a good set for it.
Anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Thank you, Nexus Esports, Zach Hudson, Robert Miller, Seth Noel, and everyone that just worked so hard on the set this week and throughout our season, and throughout ever since I joined Nexus Esports. It's been really been an honor and a pleasure to work with all smart people and really fast people that just know what they're doing. And also thank you to Raceface Brand Awareness, Friends of Jacqueline Foundation that I run on my Road to Pro scheme. Give them a shout out. Go follow them on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. It's for kids that have pediatric cancer, and they really have it rougher than we do, and we just need to give them as much attention as possible. And yeah, just thank you guys also for doing a broadcast. I actually didn't know that y'all had a broadcast till we ran Phoenix, so thank you guys for doing that, and hopefully we'll see y'all again at Bristol.
Thank you very much for the time, and we'll see you on the track in one way or another.
Yeah, we'll see you again. I'll see you again, Justin. Hopefully on the racetrack again.
Have to wait and see. Getting Honeycutt coming home third tonight, and what was a strong performance for the whole team, Ryan?
Yep, very good result for him and a very good result for Nexus Esports in general. And the race was interesting. We had a bit of everything, didn't we? We had strategy, we had green flag runs, we had cautions, and wouldn't be NASCAR that controversy, would it?
Yeah, absolute controversy towards the end, and I don't blame some of the emotions coming up there, but at the same time, you have to take the time to think and potentially reflect back on things. From what I'm expecting, there is the chances of repercussions going all the way to Bristol, because there's a lot of bumping and banging at Bristol Motor Speedway with the way it can be difficult to pass there. It's just going to be the matter, though, too, Ryan, of seeing which team is most prepared to battle for 250 laps.
For tonight, though, that will conclude us a thrilling edition to the NASCAR iRacing Series of Round 7 at Texas Motor Speedway. Next week, we go short track racing. We're going to Bristol to the Coliseum in America. And that will come off the back of the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series on Tuesday night as well. So we should see a very strong field on Friday night for that. For SimSpeed TV, we've got plenty of broadcasts coming up this week as well. Make sure you subscribe and like the iRacing Esports Network to not miss a minute of the action from every broadcaster on the network. Go and subscribe to SimSpeed as well on YouTube so you don't miss a minute from us. You can find us all on Facebook as well, both channels and commentators alike. Make sure you chuck us a like to help support us. But from all of us up here in the booth, been an absolute pleasure calling this race for you. My name's Ryan Jones. I had Justin Prince alongside me and Jay Kennedy helping us out on comms at the start and behind the scenes for the rest of the race. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, race hard, race clean, and we'll see you on the track.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my god! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?